Hi, everybody. This is 1,055 days. 1,055 days. Let me turn on my Facebook and see if everything is working right. So I can take questions. I don't know why it looks a little bit greenish today. I don't know. I don't. Um, it's just the way the lighting is. Okay. All right. Looks like everything is running. Let me turn everything down. Anicia, thank you so much for coming on. I'm a little bit earlier today. Okay, so I wanted to talk about MAGA, MAGA, and how that will help Richard's case. Well, we'll see. The last few days, it's been Flag Day, right? Happy Flag Day. I normally on my McGuffey's online tutor put up a Flag Day lesson. And today, with my grandchildren, helping out with homeschool, I didn't do Flag Day. I needed to do Flag Day. Maybe I'll do something tomorrow. Um, we did Little Red Hen today. The story of the Little Red Hen, where the Little Red Hen finds some wheat grain and asks, who will help me plant them? And the answer was, not I, right? Too busy with vanity, too busy with gossip, too busy with sleeping, and and other things. And so she said, "Okay, I'll do it myself." She planted them herself, and she said, "Who's going to help me tend them? Water them, weed them? Not I, not I, not I. Too busy, too busy with vanity, too busy with gossip, too busy with sleeping." And the version that we have anyway. Um, Not I. Goodbye. um, then she said, "Who will help me look? It grew. It grew. The wheat grew. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. Who will help me cut it? Who will help me thresh it?" And no, not I. Not I. Too busy with Vanity Fair. Too busy with gossip. Too busy with sleeping. And she said, "Okay, I'll do it myself." And And then she says, "Oh, who will help me take this wheat to the mill to turn it into flour?" Not I, not I, not I. Too busy. Too busy with vanity, too busy with gossip, too busy with sleeping. Not I. Goodbye. She said, "Okay, well, I'll go and do it myself." She went and had the wheat milled into beautiful flour. And one morning she woke up a couple days later and said, "I'm going to bake some bread. Who will help me? Who will help me bake the bread? Bake the bread." Not I. Not I. Too busy. Too busy with the Vanity Fair. Too busy with the gossip. Too busy with sleeping. And she said, "Okay, I'll do it myself." And she did. And you know how bread is. I mean, I think every extra pound on me is because of bread and butter. I mean, I love bread and butter. Um, and it smells so good when you bake bread. It smells so good, and it smells so good that people forget about their vanity. They forget about their gossip, and they forget about their sleeping, and they wake up and they're like, it's like smelling good coffee, good bread. Um, And the little red hen says, well, who will help me eat the bread? Oh, I will. I will. I will. Not too busy at all. And she said, but who, but when I needed you to help me plant the wheat, when I needed you to help me tend it, when I needed you to help me cut it and thresh it, when I needed you to help me mill it and to bake the bread, you weren't there. So I'm going to eat it myself. um, I think that's I think that sums up MAGA. I think that sums up MAGA. Because to make America great again, we can't be too busy with our vanity. We can't be too busy with our gossip. We can't be too busy sleeping. We've got to plant the greatness. We've got to tend it. We've got to take it to the mill and turn it into flour and make bread out of it. We need to produce something. We need to produce something, and it's our freedom too. Our freedom, our sanity. They've tried to, with this psychological warfare, they've tried to turn us into basket cases, destroy our family, pit us against each other. The psychological warfare has been really against us. And I think it culminated, um, well, maybe not. I think the doorway was the COVID, and now with the sex cults, and they are sex cults, the pedophilia, and et cetera, everything around it. I think they're just trying to turn us insane, and they're up to no good. The things that I hear about, and um, so Richard knew that if you wanted freedom, if you wanted a beautiful family, if you wanted a future, that you had to do the work. You had to plant it. You had to tend it. Um, you had to make something of it. You had to harvest it and make something of it. And your name means something. You're uh, and God tells us that in the fifth commandment: honor your father and mother, that things will go well with you and you will live long on the earth. That's, to me, um, that's all about your legacy. It's all about your name, all about how people remember you. And that's how you honor your family, is by having a positive character, a good character, a righteous character, as much as you can do it. There's not one that's good, not one, but God alone. But we can do the best we can. We could try, instead of being antinomian, anti-God, anti-law, and this is what they want. They want to turn us all into antinomians. They want us to give in to the pedophile. They want us to give in to the sex cults. They want us to give in to the control of these few people, these monopolies, and give away our autonomy, give away, uh, and when I say autonomy, um, it is that secondary free will, because we don't have a primary free will, y'all. We can't decide on when we're married. I mean, when we're born, when what color hair we have, uh, what language we're speaking. We can't control that when we're born. It's, if we're male, if we're female, we can't control that. So we have a secondary free will, not a primary, and um, we're under God. That's what that under God means. And they want us to give that up. They want that primary free will, see. That's a psyop. It's been a psyop for many, many years. And just to love yourself and all that stuff. I'm like, no, love God, love God. Because every time I've tried the other, it got me into big trouble. Um, Not big, big trouble, but trouble enough where you know that you need to get back on the right path. So MAGA is, I think it is definitely the story of the little red hen, where if we want it, we're going to have to work for it. It's it's not going to just be there and someone says, "Oh, here's some fresh bread. Do you want to eat it?" Oh yeah. I think we're going to have to work for it, and I don't think it's too late at all. Even with what's going on with President Trump, you can see that if you are for him or not for him in the past, of course we were for him, which is extraordinary, because we've always been like the Ron Paul, the Perot type, the outlining, um, the the candidate that didn't have a chance, right? I mean, Pro got pretty close. That made them nervous. Perot made them nervous, and they changed the laws then. Um, and they're trying to do that now. They want control over who is in that executive branch, you see, because they want the war machine. I think Tucker Carlson hit the nail on the head, um, where he said, because they want the war machine. The war machine is so profitable. It is. And we've been all caught up in it. Um, and I think that I think it's time that we realize how we've been hoodwinked and been caught up in the war machine. I mean, it's huge. It is so big. And now with the Sound of Freedom, we see that our Department of Defense, they're not coming. The Marines are not coming. That was in the trailer. In the trailer, that was the line that really got me. The Marines aren't coming. They're not going to defend the land and the people. They're not going to defend the children. We have thousands that were entrusted into the emergency intake center there at Fort Bliss, and they're unaccounted for. We don't know where they're at. And that was in the hands of the DOD. That was in the hands of, well, I've heard admirals, right? And they're unaccounted for. So the Marines aren't coming, and the Army's not coming, and so it's all connected. That's what I want to say. It's all connected. It's a very big deal because if you have transportation, if you have security, you can do you can have huge criminal syndicates and make loads of money off of the dime of the taxpayer. And Richard saw that. See, that's what he was calling out, because he said it. I rather burn my money. So you see that he's telling us this is an economic situation. I rather burn my money than spend it on whores and blow. Um, he was giving us a message, and I really, when I first saw that, that was given to us by Belen, that video. And I think it was meant to kind of shock us, like, oh, Rich, the way Richard's talking or something like that. But they've got our family all wrong, you know? Um, we're not a Pence family. We're not a Pence family. We're a God-fearing family. But it's not like the Pence family. So, um, so when I saw that video of Richard, because he's so beautiful and strong in there in that video, and remember when he calls him the big booty, uh, um, he was sending a message. He was telling us, and we said that then, and we weren't like, oh my gosh, no. And we weren't that way with the audio to Belen too when he was telling her, um, you don't have to listen to me, you don't have to believe me, but don't do it. Don't do that OnlyFans, because those women that encourage you to do it, they don't respect you. They don't respect you. They might say they do, but they don't. They think of you bad. And the guys, they're just horny. They just want to see you naked. Um, I think that was another message. I think it was to Belen. It wasn't like the burning money video. I think he was really concerned about her. Um, because she couldn't see the bigger picture, or she's trapped. She's trapped in that culture, which is absolutely possible. Look what happened to Richard. She's probably saw a lot of things. Maybe she was a little wiser, streetwiser than Richard when it came to what they could do to you there in El Paso, because they sure did do that to Richard. And will MAGA help? Um, only if we can get justice again. It's all about justice. It's all about those courts. And I will tell you today, we had a breakthrough, a huge breakthrough, because we know now where the depository is of Richard's information. We know. And that's a huge breakthrough. So we'll be pursuing that, to get, you know, because why won't the CPS, the Child Protective Services, honor our FOIA, right? Why don't we have all the information concerning the complaints that Richard put in for the CID, right? Um, yeah, that is that's really big. That's really big. We need that information. And there's been so many irregularities, you can call it, in this case, that you see it in there's it's the same SOP. When I read about President Trump and all these years, 7 years now, I remember 2015, we were in Germany, and they said, oh, this guy named Donald Trump, from some show that he's in, The Apprentice, right? He's going to run for president. And I'm like, really? Oh, yeah, he's a billionaire, really? Um, and he comes down that escalator, and I'm like, okay, whatever, whatever. He's rich. Okay, whatever. What is he going to do? But then he said something. He said, we're going to build the wall and make Mexico pay for it. And I just thought, what? He's going to get shot. He's going to get shot. Um, Not because that was an insult to Mexico, but because, I'm a Ron Paul person. I like economics, and I know we have a huge deficit with Mexico, right? I was a Perot person, that sucking sound over the border, right? The NAFTA, yeah. Um, was it the, anyway, but the whole Perot time when, the sucking sound over the border and all that, um, and I knew we had a deficit with Mexico. And when he said that, I was like, ooh, um, because there are leaders, big, big shots in the United States that like to take advantage of the Mexicans, of Mexico. They don't want to give them fair wages, but yet they want to charge the prices and make a big profit without giving the workers a fair wage. And they could get away with it in Mexico. Um, I don't know how. Um, I don't know how, but they can. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. So I thought, wow, Donald Trump, whoever this guy is, because, I'm in Europe and I don't watch TV much. I didn't watch Apprentice. Um, I thought, wow, he's showing a lot of love for Mexico. And yet, what was the reaction because of the media? They were saying that he was insulting Mexico, and I thought, wow, they really are twisting the truth, aren't they? They really are. And I need to look him up. And so Rob and I spent days. I would spend nights because of other things going on during the day. I would spend nights going over um, every interview and everything to find out who this guy is. Hours and hours, y'all. And I thought, okay, um, he owns up to his children. He owns up to his children. He doesn't deny his children. He doesn't deny his grandchildren. That's a good start. But then I looked at his financials and I was blown away. I even posted them on Find Richard Halliday not too long ago. I think on the Telegram, maybe on Facebook too. I have them. I have his financials that I looked up in 2015. I'm sure they're different now, but um, I thought this man knows international business. He knows how to build something. He knows how to plant the wheat. He knows how to care for the wheat. He knows how to grow it. He knows how to harvest it and thresh it and mill it. And he knows how to bake the bread. He knows how to do it. And so, of course, this is the 2015 hat, or 2016. Yeah, give him a chance if he knows how to produce bread. And um, and he does. Let's give him a chance because that's what his financials absolutely shows. I mean, it is so lengthy and it's so impressive. And I don't think I've ever seen any other candidate have something like that. And you can't be a scoundrel and have something like that. Okay. Now, did he make deals? Yeah, he made deals. But it's not the deals like what the Bidens made in Ukraine and with Russia and with um, China and with China. No, these were not. This was actually building something, and not just. Um, well, I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll find out. So, and these are all discussions that we had with Richard. These are all family discussions. Wow, look at this. Look at this. Look at these hotels. Look at what he did in Scotland. Look at what he did in Korea. Look at what he did in Ireland. Look at what he did in the United States. Look at what he did everywhere. I mean, we would have these discussions, these hotels, and uh, building factories to make the supplies to supply the hotels. Um, and the farms to, um, I mean, he does his own beef, you know, and it was just really being living in Ireland at the time and having very close connections with farmers and seeing what they have to go through. Uh, we have a very high regard for farmers, very, very. And I really can't stand subsidies at all, um, because that's a way to rob the farmers of their true wages, I believe. I believe. So, so this all really connects with Richard because Richard knew this stuff. And, he was a Mark Dice fan, right? He was a Trump fan. He was not a Vanity Fair fan. He was not a sex cult fan. And he rather burn his money than spend it on whores and blow. And it was very, there's so much to it. There's so much to it that it was hard to explain to several people that were trying to do a psyops on us about who our son is. And, oh, well, this is what he became. You don't know him anymore. He joined the army and you don't know him anymore. He changed 180 degrees, right? And I'm like, okay, that's not true. That's not true. Of course he's going to change. But what they were telling us was insanity. And so October came around of 2020, and lots of things happened in October of 2020. And then came the day, Dollar General Day. And I want to play that video for you of Dollar General Man, Nadal Bayim. And Nadal Bayim, we didn't know who he was, okay? But we had, this was just an act of God. I'm just going to tell you this was just an act of God because it took courageous people to care about Richard in El Paso. And El Paso is, has always been dear to my heart because I was born at White Sands and I grew up there. Um, partially grew up there, partially grew up in Temple, Texas, and partially grew up in Germany. Um, my dad was ADA, so I definitely understood El Paso and not so much how the child sex trafficking had grown so much. And I think the Sound of Freedom, this movie that's coming up with Mel Gibson, which is really, really amazing for us, okay? Because we lived in Longford, Ireland, and Mel Gibson's mother is from Longford, Ireland. And the cathedral there in Longford, Ireland is called St. Mel's. St. Mel was the nephew of St. Patrick. And St. Mel's Cathedral, the original, which is much, very small compared to what is now St. Mel's in Longford town, was behind our house. We could walk there and go through those ruins. And here you have Mel Gibson, which, and I don't know when St. Mel's burnt down because while we were living there, there was a Christmas fire and St. Mel's burnt down and they had to rebuild it. And I think they reached out to Mel Gibson. I don't know if he funded it, but I know that this child sex trafficking, he produced this uh, docu-series, right? And I think that's coming out, and I think that helps Richard's case because that is what he was complaining to Child Protective Services about. And I don't need to have that Child Protective Service complaint in my hand to say that. Because when you're that close to a person and you know a person and you can look into his eyes and you can see him, and I'm going to play this for you. Let's see. This right here, when you know a person like we know Richard, Richard might not say anything about people having sex in the barracks, even doing drugs in the barracks, having weapons in the barracks. Um, I don't think Richard would say anything about that. Um, but if they were harming children, he would absolutely report it. Absolutely. And he knew Child Protective Services. And with the Hart family and their history is, y'all, it's in the early 1990s, their history. What I've mentioned on these live streams is just the tip of the iceberg, okay? It's a long history of abuse. And I really don't I really I don't think I need to describe it because I think people understand it when I say there's a long history of child abuse, incest, child pornography. People definitely understand that today. It is it's bad. And it's so bad that child sex trafficking has become the number one criminal syndicate moneymaker. Billions of dollars, yeah, billions, more than our who was I listening to the other day? Our travel industry with our airlines industry. It makes more than our airlines industry, and it's huge. So, absolutely, Richard would report that. I, I the lack of honoring our FOIA and the extent of, yeah, there's connections even in the Child Protective Services. They've they've infiltrated. There's people everywhere that are willing to even be uncomfortable participants. Okay? Because they feel like they make this excuse that they're just trying to get by and they have their families and that. But um, there's just some things that we cannot be uncomfortable participants with. And that this child sex abuse, these sex cults, because that's how they will run a whole all the agencies and everything. They'll make it a litmus test. You have to be an uncomfortable participant at least that. If you want to get a promotion, if you want to get a position, if you want to get elected, right? That's why it's so dangerous, because it makes so many people either participants or uncomfortable participants. So I wanted to show you this. And then you have so many more victims, right? So this is what we got. That this is on the 26th of October 2020. There's a flyer on the door, and this is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado of the G3 32nd ADCOM. And he's not doing anything wrong. Matter of fact, I think he's a hero. I think he's a hero. He's very kind to me when I talked to him on the phone. He was forthwith. He admitted to who he was, and he hoped that Richard was, yeah. Here's a flyer um, on the door, and he comes in, and this is at the very end, and I'll tell you why. Um, yeah, I'll tell you why I had to put this up. Um, Corinne Adeline kept saying, he's pushing up his mask. He's pushing up his mask. And I'm like, no, that's not what's happening here. That's not what's happening here at all. Because if you listen to the cashier, and we even spoke to the cashier, we spoke to people in the shop because she had to work. But it happened really, we were just so fortunate. We were so fortunate to be there less than an hour after it happened and to get this footage and to speak to people. And then also, she allowed us to video her testimony, her witness testimony, firsthand. This is all firsthand. There's no third party here. So we turned all this in that day. I believe it was that day, to the FBI and to the CID, and they told us this was a nobody. Okay, and what's happening here? Why we clipped this, is because you clearly see him going, shh, shh. Yeah, it's a secret. And that is what really got me. Because if a soldier is found, and he's found in Mexico, and he's found dead in Mexico, and all you want is the flyers put down and people not to look for him and it's a secret and you don't want to call the family? You don't want to call the family and say, hey, your son was found dead in Mexico? Why? Why is it a secret? And with the FBI and the CID not telling us who this man is and his connections with the G3 of the 32nd AdCom, I think that is huge when it comes to that they're trying to cover up something. Because they had this. They had this from us. They had this lead from us. They knew who he is and was at the time, and they kept it from us and misled us and lied to us. They absolutely lied to us and say he was just some guy watching our Facebook. No, that's not true. And when I talked to him on the phone with my husband, he said he got it from a lieutenant colonel. And lo and behold, his son-in-law is Lieutenant Colonel Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd AdCom. That was 10 months after. And following that discovery, to say, wait a minute, we know who he is now, there was a huge effort. And we're going to show that in the timeline. Following August of 2021, there was extraordinary effort. Okay, there was effort in November of 2020, and then they upped the game again in September of 2021, and then they upped the game again in February of 2022. And so there's been a huge cover-up, y'all. It's not my imagination. The timeline shows it. You will, when we get it all together, you'll see it. You'll see with each step where we uncovered a huge lead, there was an extra push, an extra effort to divert, to mislead, to create irregularities in this case, to sabotage the truth. And you see that in Trump's case too. It's the same SOP. Every time that he discovers something, he discloses something, he right now he is doing really, really well. He is the number one opponent to to the president, and you have this kind of attack on him. There's always this attempt to sabotage. And so that's why we can see it so clearly in what they did to Trump, because we've been living it, the same standard operating procedures in our case with our son. And hopefully one day, maybe his case will help our case, or our case will help his case, because they're very connected when it comes to the same methods being used. And if we can stop those methods, it'll help both of us. And then let the people decide, you see? Then let the people decide. So we would like the Child Protective Services complaints to be out, the CID complaints to be out. We would like to know where is Lieutenant Colonel Bugado now? What happened to Lieutenant Colonel Roddick? What happened to why Clem Coward lost his command? Same with Roddick. What's going on with Park? What's going on with Jay Pollan? What's going on with Michael Ruggiero? What's going on with them? And what's going on with Dallas Hart, the platoon leader? The platoon leader, okay? We want all this to come out. We want the timeline to come out, but no, Delta Battery 143 has been hidden. And everything surrounding Richard has been hidden. But step by step, little by little, we've exposed it. And we know that he's been retaliated against. We know that they were lying to us, not just about this, but also about January 2020, about March 2020, about April 2020, about May 2020, about June, July, August, September, October, November, and onwards. There's very few months. Yes, okay, he was in FTC in February. FTX, I mean, FTX in February. Um, but was at the end of February, was there a fight? You know, it's interesting. Anyway, uh, so we're putting this all together, and it's revealing suspects. It's revealing profiles of suspects. It's you know, there's just a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and it takes time. So I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that we have screenshots, we have records, um, we have so much, and also the videos and more. So whatever they've tried to keep from us, we have plenty, plenty to piece this together to make our case, but we have to be able to make the case. And that's what we need to pray about, what we need to do. That is the planting of the wheat. We've got it. I guess maybe what's the analogy in all of this? Because we need to be able to go to court. But until then, we have a much broader way of investigating and discovery without limitations, which is a very good thing. And today was a breakthrough because we found out where the depository is of so much information for Richard. So let's watch this. I'm pretty mellow today. I think it's really important to get this, and I have another video too. And that on the door right there is a flyer of Richard. There you go. Now this was not the flyer of Richard originally. It was at the very beginning of this. I think, did I put it at the beginning? No, it's the other one. Let's do this one.
I'm just gonna videotape it because I can't remember everything.
Okay. Yeah, he came by and then he asked who put the flyers. So I told him that a friend that worked here, and he's like, oh, he's been found. You could take him off. And I was like, okay. I'm like, is he?
Now that is so strange. He did not like the flyers being up. Or, if he was found, call the number on the flyer. call the number on the flyer, and then the flyers would come down, right? Call and say he's been found.
Okay. I'm like, good thing you guys found him. He's like, no, but bad news. He just said that, and then when he was leaving, he's like, come here. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, he's dead. And I was like, okay.
I don't know if you heard her, but when he called her over to the door at the end, and we have all of the video footage. He said, come here, and he said he was dead. So he also told her that he's with the FBI, and so you'll hear Rob say, "Did he show you a badge?"
And then I didn't quite understand this part, but he said that they found him in Juarez, and that right now that they have like 5 points of where he can be, and that they were gonna check today, I believe. But that's what I understood from the 5 points, because he threw me off right there.
Okay, so the analysis that we received on this is 5 points can be pretty satanic. 5 points, well, we have the autopsy um, that needs to be answered. Is this the autopsy that was conducted on Richard? This number that we have, because it says they checked it with DNA and it was Richard Halliday, um, and it's fragmented, and the other autopsies, the leads that we have that they will not answer us, is that Richard was dismembered, brutally murdered. It's a murder, and he was dismembered and placed in these different places. So, um, we need the answers to this, right? We need the answers. And how can you get this? October 26, 2020, the FBI received this. And for them to say he's a nobody when he gives this kind of information. And he is really the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bogado in the G3, y'all. The G3, the heartbeat of 32nd AdCom. Um, yeah. No wonder they upped the sabotage after this.
Because he said that they had found him in Juarez, but that they had like 5 locations of where they think that his body might be, and that they were gonna check him.
And he didn't show you a badge, right?
No, that's what Luz was telling me, that she thought that was weird.
Really? Wow.
But
And he said he was.
every morning I kind of see him hear some things.
Really?
But yeah, he told me he was okay, but I never asked him, oh, show me your badge, show me.
How
proof.
tall?
He was maybe like a little bit taller than me.
Okay.
A little bit taller than me. But yeah,
Okay.
as soon as I get out, I'll take a video and send it to Luke. Okay?
You're the best. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Yeah, that was the flyer taped onto the front.
Yeah, he's looking at it, yeah.
And this was that video that um, he's not pushing up his mask here, y'all. Okay, so and I probably should play that all the time. If you are not members of Telegram, find Richard Halliday. I've been posting some things on there. I try to do both, but it's really hard. Now, the other thing that MAGA, that has to do with MAGA, is they're passing around this message that the seal is broken. And if anyone knows what that means, let me know. The seal is broken. What does that mean? Um, yeah. Okay, I'll take some questions. Good evening. Thank you so much, Danielle. Thank you, Anicia. I think Trump failed Richard in many ways. Um, this isn't political. He was in office when Richard went missing. Yeah, absolutely. He was. And there are things that I know about Mealy, about McConville, um, uh, that oh man. Um, but it is very, very political. You're very wrong on that. This is all about politics. And they have divided us so much so that we're not allowed to respect each other for having our different political beliefs. And it's like a civil war, and this is absolutely politics, and absolutely in June this month, what's going on is something that our family could never be behind. No. This double standard justice system, this support for the sex cults, this not looking into those that are pedophiles, trying to normalize pedophilia, trying to normalize sex cults. And you might not agree with us on that, but that's where we stand. And that's where Richard, I am 100% sure, that is where Richard stood. And that is, and we weren't marching. That's why I brought that up so much. We were not lockstepping to the COVID. And I know Richard wasn't. And we know that in the military, you were retaliated against if you didn't want to get the Cobra strike, if you weren't lockstepping to it. And the really terrible thing about that is when we went into the meetings, they laughed at it. They were making these generals, they were making their soldiers lockstep to it and laughing about it and dismissing it because they knew it was political. And the DOD, the Department of Defense, they were the ones making sure that it all happened. Without the Department of Defense, that destruction of our country of the world could not have happened. Okay? Could not have happened. And when we went in that meeting, oh my gosh, yeah. It was all a show. It was all political. All political. This is so political. And it is a politics that was very, very against Trump. And, I don't have, I'm not like this MAGA loyalist. I wasn't at that time. I'm a loyalist to this country and to the people and really to God. I want um I want America to be great. I want us to have a good economy. I want the builders. But I feel like Washington, D.C. is so big, and the Republican Party is rotten, and the Democrat Party is rotten, and I have always felt that way. But this is very political. If you don't think this is political, this is so political. And part of those vile, vulgar messages were political. They tried everything. They tried the fact that he's was born in Poland. They tried they have access to our personal files because of the information that they know. That's why this is an inside job. This is an inside job, and I see so much similar to what they've done to Trump. Instead of letting the people decide, you know, uh, I do not like the Bushes. I didn't like the Clintons. You know, I told you I was a Ron Paul person. We were a Ron Paul family. Um, did not like them. And, but that doesn't mean I never said, oh, well, if he becomes president, Obama, I didn't like Obama at all. Um, if they become president, we're going to leave or whatever. I never screamed. I never whatever. I let the people decide. And then you find out that the people aren't deciding. That there's um, people are people in high places are up to no good, and they're controlling. And what everything that my Oma said is was right on, that they control the elections, and they control psyops and all kinds of stuff. This is all about politics and geopolitics, um, and Richard was definitely on the wrong side. We were on the wrong side. We were called every name. We were told not to go to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. And I'm like, why not? There's going to be 1 million people there. There'll be so many people there. And that means that they will have a lot of media there to cover all of that. We need to go to get in front of the media, to hold up Richard's face in front of the media, to talk to media. And guess what? The media wasn't there because the media is controlled. That was such an epiphany. January 6th, I'm so glad that I went. We all, every one of us that went, we are so glad that we went because it was a huge epiphany. It was such a setup job. If they know 1 million people are going and they don't even put out porta potties, you know it's a setup job. They didn't have security, you know it's a setup job. They didn't have a lot of the food trucks were all owned by one person. That's wow. Um, the audio wasn't good. There was all kinds of problems. I mean, I didn't even get to hear the speech because we were way in back, and that we were handing out flyers and handing out the prayer candles with the cards on it. Um, so I got a good scene of what was going on, and we were tear gassed. It was cold. People were saying prayers. People were singing patriotic songs. Were there some bad actors in it? I think that there were instigators. Absolutely. And from our experience in Find Richard Halliday, absolutely, there were tons of FBI informants there because they can break the law and get away with it. They can instigate crime, they can do crime, and they can get away with it. They're immune. They have immunity. And that absolutely has gone on in Richard Halliday's case. Because we're like, how could they get away with this? And how could they get away with what they're doing in our son's case? I mean, how can CPS, how can Bill Hicks get away with what he's doing? How can Veronica Escobar get away with what she's doing? I mean, they're criminals. How can Mealy get away with what he's doing? And McConville, and Garrett. Clem Coward. All these generals and flag officers, um, and Lieutenant Colonel Roddick, Captain Park, Dallas Hart. His mother is the one that confessed. And there's no charge against her. And she's saying that while he is in uniform, he's engaged in an incestuous relationship. How can they get away with this? And who gets dismembered? Richard. Who gets retaliated against severely, continuously, and then, let's try to get him to commit suicide. That's my view. And then if that doesn't work, we'll murder him, and we'll cover it up so big they will not find his remains because they found Vanessa's. So I don't know why the light is kind of green today, but maybe it's from the hat. The hat is yeah, that's a good question, Danielle. The the apology, Boleyn could put a date on that. He could he could put she could put a date on that. And that's another thing. And they hide behind this. Oh, he's under investigation. Yet for 15 months, and I hope this is working. For 15 months, they didn't do anything. I can't see anymore. Okay. So, yeah, sorry about that. I wanted to say, okay, so the officer of the court puts in his complaint. Huge. This is in January of 2022, and they don't do anything. They don't go and interview him. They don't even call him in to interview. They don't investigate any of his claims for, 18 months now. 18 months? How can they get away with this? So there's one irregularity after the other that shows that this is a cover-up, that this is absolutely political. That's why there's a cover-up. Because if Richard's remains were found in Mexico, and this is international, this is absolutely political. And because of the border wall, because of the human trafficking, because of the child sex trafficking, because of his CPS complaints. It's so political. That's why Veronica Escobar is covering up. That's why the DA Hicks. Um, it's interesting that he's never been elected ever for anything, and then he gets put in there. Um, what was Yvonne Rosales really um, outed for, right? What did they replaced her, and she's an elected DA. Um, and I'm looking at the Walmart case. I'm like, no, um, that's not political enough. So, but Richard's case is, it's very political because it has to do with the border. It has to do with what he was complaining about. It has to do with the military. And one of the things they want is war, 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 and they want the support for the military because they want war, 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 and they want people to volunteer. And that's been very clear to us. I think that the don't join, you don't have to listen to me um, about the OnlyFans, I think that happened in October, November of 2019, that audio. And I think the apology happened in July of 2020. So that should just answer those questions. Maybe it happened in June, but I think it was after I think he was sexually assaulted. I think that he was harassed, he was bullied, he was everything, everything. They had put up the green flag to destroy Richard. And you see it in Jay Pollin's attitude. You see it in Ruggiero's lack of willingness to speak with us. You see it in David Park. You see it in the unit. You see it in the military police. You see it in the CID. You see it in Tavita Nusa. You see it in this group that steals our identity, steals Richard's identity, sends vile, vulgar messages to the family. If only 5 people are watching, then why do they even care? Why do they even care? So, and they do. So it absolutely screams that there's foul play here. And there's a lot of people involved. So I'll even, I put this up. What to ask Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks will be at a meeting. Oh, and I meant to put that up there. But if you do go to if you're in El Paso and you are invited, and you get into close proximity with Bill Hicks, the DA there for El Paso, then you can ask them, are the FBI and the DOD leadership hiding Richard Halliday's remains? Because Nadal Baim, the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bugado, says so. And Why isn't Bill Hicks looking into this case? And why, and to add to that urgency, the State Department confirmed that the FBI were looking for Richard's remains in Juarez, Mexico. And to add again to that, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe was looking for Richard's remains there at the mock Afghanistan village. So, and why doesn't the DA make sure that we have protection? Why doesn't he make sure that we get our Freedom of Information CPS complaints and CID complaints? Why doesn't he make sure of that? But like I said, we did have a breaking day today, and we do know where this depository is, and we'll be working on that. And I'll let you know that we're also working on some other things behind the scenes, and as that develops, I will let you know. And so if people want proof, you can give them the video of Nadal Baim. I think that is huge proof. And I have some proof of the CPS complaints, because there is this huge effort to claim that this is nothing. Oh, it's nothing. Richard was just just walked away. This is nothing. And I'm here to tell you day in and day out that this is something. And it's so big, one, for my son, but also for our military, also for our country, also for all these children, and for the politics, for justice, it's just so big. There's so many ramifications, to positive ramifications, to getting answers to this, even with the huge negative that we know of, that Richard is presumed murdered, which is bad for us. But if we can get justice, maybe in our grief, we can help someone else. And yeah, that would be, we don't want anyone else to have to go through this. And these people need to be held accountable. And to see what's happening in our politics, it's very, very clear that they just want, they want, there's other things going on too politically, but there's so many things that connect Richard's case with the politics of the day that would make them not want to reveal that they found Richard's remains in Mexico. So, okay, y'all, thank you so much. God bless you. And I know this is a tough stance with the MAGA, and I know there's a lot of people that don't like Trump, but there's a lot of people that do, y'all. And this is the thing. We're not a country of robots. We're not cloned people. We are all different, and we have different reasons why we believe different things. And for the MAGA people not to have the right is absolutely wrong. And for Donald Trump to be maligned this way, to be retaliated against this way, reminds us so much of what they did to Richard. In a much bigger sense, because of the Russia. I mean, the amount of retaliation that he has gotten is, I can't even imagine. And one thing about Richard's case is that we were lied to about the warrants. There's been 15 or more warrants issued in Richard's case. We were told 5. We have to get to the bottom of that. That is a huge, that also, just the number of warrants is evidence that there's foul play in this. Okay, so I can't even imagine the subpoenas and warrants that have been issued uh, with the Trump family. I can't even imagine what they've gone through. And I just don't see, I just saw peace. My daughter lives in South Korea. Our daughter lives in South Korea. Trump crossed into North Korea as a step towards peace. Why are we at war still with North Korea? There's no reason for it than to just have so many of our troops there in South Korea. There's just no reason. So, anyway, and I know that he was president when Richard went missing. That Mealy was a Joint Chiefs of Staff. McConville, and they are, y'all, they don't work for, they did not work for President Trump, okay? The 44 four-star generals are led by somebody else, not the commander-in-chief. And that has been well established, not by me, well established by, if you've kept track of what's going on in all of these cases and hearings up in D.C. It was shocking. And where were they working out of? Out of Santa Clara. There's connections with the DOD in Santa Clara. That's shocking. Anyway. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. We love you and we really appreciate you coming on all the time and sticking with us, even with the politics of it. I know it's so divisive. Even with the COVID aspect of it, it's so divisive. And there's even more. There's so much more. And we're just very appreciative that what matters the most is we have a missing soldier, and absolutely he's presumed murdered. Absolutely there's foul play. Absolutely there's no doubt in my mind that there's foul play, and that we did put in a criminal complaint against Leilani for the forced disappearance, conspiracy, and murder of our son Richard. So, if you see people get angry, yeah, and that's not all. We're doing other things. So thank you so much. God bless you, and God willing, I'll be back tomorrow.